So using item classes, we can structurize our data into different classes so that they are not messy. Now, one thing to note here is that our price, which is extracted using this p paragraph tag right here, it is actually a string, not a number. That is, if we take a look at the scraped data, you will see that the price is actually a string because it is inside of quotes and it also has this pound sign. Now let's say what we want to do is convert it into a integer or a floating point number, that is a number, and then we want to store it inside of a price because a price should have mathematical operations supported. So to do that, what we can do is just create a function to change this value to an integer and also remove the pound sign. So we can just create a function right here, that is define get price, and then we'll get the text data, and then we can just return the value. That is, first of all, we'll convert it into a floating point number because it may have decimal points, and then we will take the text, that is a string, and replace the pound sign, that is this sign right here, and then we will replace that with nothing, that is just remove it from our text and then just convert it into a float and return it from our function. Now let's just pass this extracted data to a function, that is get price, like this. Now if I go ahead and run our spider again, this time we will not get the string, instead we'll get our price as a number. You can see this is a number, not a string. Now one downside is that in our price extraction, you can see the code or the line looks really horrible. That is, we have a function, another function, and another function. Because of this, items provide a better way to populate our values, that is this fields, with item loader. So we can use item loaders to perform some processing functions like this, that is removing the pound sign and changing the value to a number. So let's see how can we use item loaders with our Scrapy items. To create our item loaders, first of all, we need to define the processor functions inside of the item class. So let's do that. And I will take this function because we will need it. So let's remove the extra spaces and then onto item spy. What we want to do is when we are loading this price, we will change it into a number and remove the pound sign. So to do that, we can just import the map compose function. And why do we do that? I'll just show you that in a minute. So from item loaders dot processors, we need map compose function, and we'll also need the take first. So our fields provide two processors, that is when we add a value to our item, it calls the input processor, and then we yield the value, that is just output it, we call the output processor. So we can define both of them inside of the field as keyword arguments, that is the input processor, and then we can define the output processor as well. Now in this instance, what we want to do is define the input processor. So we can just paste in our function, that is the get price, and then if we want, we can perform multiple functions on our data, that is in our field, that is the price. We can perform multiple functions, that is, let's say one function will just take the value and then another function will round off the value, and even more functions. And to do that, we can use the map compose, that is we want to apply some functions or a set of functions on a value. So we can use the map compose, that is map compose, and inside of that we can just provide a function or a lot of functions to perform on our field. And here let's say what we want to do is perform the get price, and then if we want, we can perform some other functions as well. But here, because we are only performing one, it's fine. But if you're doing multiple functions, that is, let's say, as I mentioned, changing the function to a floating point number and then rounding off the value or other things, then you can add them right here. So what will happen is that whenever we add a value to our field, that is this price, that value will be passed to this function, that is the input processor, and we'll just do these things, that is replace the pound sign with nothing, that is replace it, and then change it to a floating point number. And then that will be stored inside of our item loader. And then when we yield the data that is from here, that is the actual extraction, we will call the output processor. And as we took a look at the data first, that is, it will be inside of a list. So let's say we will just select the H3A like this. Then what will happen is that we'll get a list of even one thing. So here what we need to do is just define in the output processor that we want to take the first non-null value. So with this, we have set it up our item function to be used with item loaders. In the next lesson, let's go ahead and use this item with our item loader. And one thing before I close this lesson is that let's just add a comma right here. That's why we got error right here. Okay, fine. So in the next lesson, let's go ahead and use this item with our item loader.